and we're talking Francois Truffaut's The 400 Blows from 1959, spine number 5 in the Criterion Collection. Synopsis. This week, RJ, I thought I would do something a little bit different and
Sure.
maybe call this one like a bad 90s comedy trailer would.
Hey, I think you might as well, because if anything's going to spice up this movie, I think that's it.
Oh,
No.
Meet Antoine Doinel. He's a boy growing up in Paris, and he can't do anything right. Misunderstood at home by his parents, yelled at by his teachers, Antoine is looking to break away from it all. Playing hooky from school, catching mom with other fellas, going to the movies, and reading the classics, things just go from bad to worse for old Antoine. Sooner or later, one thing leads to another, and Antoine is going to boarding school. With the world against him, with the walls closing in around him, Antoine makes one last desperate run for freedom, and we're along for the ride.
Wow. I think you sold it, man.
I think that's that.
I think it's going to star Sinbad and probably Jonathan Taylor Thomas
I was thinking Anthony Hopkins.
as the little kid.
No.
Current time Anthony Hopkins as the little kid.
Yeah, that would change things up.
Yes. All right. I'm
Okay.
in. I'm in. Well, I thought that was nice. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. RJ, what did you think of the 400 Blows?
I think this movie's all right. I'm not super wowed by it. I think it's. I think for the time and what it's about, I think it's a very good movie. But I don't know. Watching it, there were times where I was just kind of bored, to be honest with you. And I feel like this reminded me a lot of like the Richard Linklaters and the early day Kevin Smiths of the world. Like, I feel like they watch this movie a lot because it's kind of like just the
Kevin
life of
Smith.
like, yeah. Well, Kevin Smith was like he credits like Richard Linklater as why he started. So
Okay.
maybe I'll just use Linklater, like in the sense that it's just a movie like following some characters as they live, kind of like as they go around. So I guess this is like semi based on like Truffaut's life, maybe. Like this was like a lot of it is stuff that just happened to him as like a kid on the streets in Paris. No, I don't know. Like, I think it's good. I wasn't really wowed by it at all. Like, it seemed like it was just like, to me, it was like a less entertaining Ferris Bueller's Day Off, because it was like just this little French kid, like just skipping school and running around doing stuff. That like there's one scene where he's like living on the streets and he steals some milk, and it's like 10 minutes long of him just drinking this bottle of milk. I actually thought that was pretty good. My girlfriend commented, she said, "What is this, a McPoyle?" From Always Sunny fame. So I thought that was pretty good. The stuff I liked, like there's some pretty cool shots. Like there's a shot where he's on like that the carnival ride of like the spaceship, and it's like spinning around and the camera's like at the top. I thought that was neat. This movie has an all-time classic dad move where it's a behind the back double booby honk. He goes up to the mom and gives her one of those. I thought that was super cool too. Near the end, you see kids in cages basically, and I thought that was pretty fucked up. I don't really know what that was about. You see it twice. Like he gets put in a cage in the jail, which I was like, okay, whatever. And then he gets like, so if you're listening, you've seen this movie, so
Yeah.
I'm just gonna talk about it. When he gets sent to like that reform school,
Yeah.
and like the boys are getting marched outside, and it pans to a shot, and there's like 3 little girls just in a cage in the middle of the field, and I was like, what the fuck? Like, is that because they have to like separate them because these boys will like attack them, or is it because they're really fucked up and like they all attack the boys? Or like, I was like, I just didn't get it. I was like, why is there like these kids caged in this thing? So that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
The movie ends kind of, which I thought was kind of funny and also very striking, where it like super zooms in on the kid's face. It's like, "Duh," and it like rooms up to him. I thought that was kind of funny. I don't know. I think you get my take on it. Like, I don't know. Like, I think it's a good show. To be honest, maybe it was me. I'll give it a little bit of a credit or a benefit of the doubt. Maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it that day. But like, I don't know. I thought it was okay. That's about it.
Okay.
What's your take on the 400 blows?
Okay. So,
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Go right ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to mention that the masterclass editing you did for the last episode, where you were talking about the Amicord and farts and things like that. I feel really bad because at the end of the episode, we talked about 400 blows, and I didn't make a joke that this movie was I was going to say Fellini's 400 blows and then make a big loud fart sound. So that's really the takeaway of this movie, is that it needs more farts.
There you go.
Sorry, continue.
Okay. So I was thinking about this movie and thinking about how to approach it for the podcast. And I mean, I think it's like, Truffaut, and like, so he was a writer for the film magazine Cahiers du Cinéma, which I only recently found out, which translates to Cinema Notebook. And I mean, that publication is like, I mean, I don't know if there wouldn't be a Criterion Collection without that publication. I don't think. Like, that was like, I'm not sure if you're familiar with how like kind of influential that it still comes out.
No,
too.
I'm not.
Okay, so I mean, pretty well. Let's see here. So the magazine started in 1951. So Francois Truffaut, he was a writer on the magazine itself. In 1954, he wrote a essay called "A Certain Tendency of French Cinema," which is basically the start of the use of the word auteur. So I mean, that's where you kind of get like I think Andrew Saris is credited with like actually coming up with the idea of auteur theory, but auteur was like kind of the first use. It appeared in this essay that Truffaut wrote, and it's in reference to, like, I mean, obviously people probably know this, but in reference to directors of film being kind of the true maker of a film. And this was an idea that filtered down from Andre Bazin and Roger Lienhardt's talk of film, and like how they were discussing film in the 1940s. Andrew Bazin, he died in 1958, a day after the 400 Blows started production, and to whom the film is dedicated right off the bat.
Okay.
So this Andre Bazin, I think it's Bazin, along with two other fellas, Jacques Doinel Valcros and Joseph Marie Laduca, they founded Cahiers du Cinéma in 1951. And so, I mean, that was just like, you'd have like pretty well all those French New Wave directors. They all kind of were writing in this magazine kind of by the late 50s and throughout the 60s before they started taking their kind of academic approach, their way of thinking about film, and actually started literalizing that into making movies the way that they were talking about it. So I mean, like Andre Bazin, like his influence on Truffaut calls for, like, because Bazin's thing was like he wanted objective reality, the use of deep focus with photography, a lack of montage, because he thinks that like without those things allow for a more real interpretation of scenes by the viewer.
Sure.
And this was like really at odds with film theory in the 20s and 30s, which really emphasized how cinema could manipulate reality. It's like, so I mean, if you consider the importance of Bazin to Truffaut, to whom he dedicated this film, it becomes like obvious that like Truffaut was putting all of Bazin's ideas to work here in the movie. And so, I mean, like you have like Bazin spoke of like objective reality, like we see in like a neo-realist film in Italy at the time. This idea of like directors being invisible, where it's like they're not bringing attention to their technique. Like true continuity and mise en scene, like just the way scenes are composited and whatnot. So I mean, these were all things that were being discussed in this like newspaper or in this magazine, like where they're trying to move away from like literary adaptations of like novels being turned into movies and just like doing straight across things like that, but actually like making movies for the sake of making movies, I guess, while like observing these sort of like ideas, which I mean Truffaut would like totally like start ignoring like a movie later. Like because I mean he did a Fahrenheit 451 adaptation, and I mean that's kind of like he was always experimenting and trying out new things. So I mean, like I just think like that's the first thing like when I was like thinking about 400 Blows that I wanted to kind of mention. First of all, with the movie, you get that opening credit sequence with the Eiffel Tower, where it's like, I think it's just like one thing that we haven't really contextualized either is like sort of like as we're watching these films in the Criterion Collection, we are jumping around in time. Like we've gone from like we've gone from talking for like a 1937 French movie just before World War II to 1954 Japanese cinema, which is a period piece. Actually, both films are actually. Those first two films are period pieces. Lady Vanishes is basically a genre movie that, like, I guess you could say was like a contemporary movie, but it's like obviously it's a spy story. And then we jumped like 30 years, 40 years into the future with Amarcord, which is like far more recognizable as kind of like how movies are made still today. Like it still resembles like filmmaking, and now we've kind of jumped back another like 20 years, and we're going to 400 Blows, which like I think it's like almost tough to like comprehend like how weird and different the 400 Blows is, because I mean, first of all, it's like it's all shot on location, like so like he like with the French New Wave as a movement itself, there's this whole idea of like getting out of the studio. Like the whole like this idea of like shooting like cinema verite. So like in this movie you get like real Paris streets, you get real schoolrooms, you get real apartments. They're not constructions being filmed like on a sound stage like Lady Vanishes, which is like all on a train station, and like all this effort is being put into like making sets. No, Truffaut, because of limitations of like money and also I guess like maybe even looking for like kind of like an honesty or truth in like what he was shooting, he decides that he's going to like tell a story, like like a semi-autobiographical story about his own like childhood, and using a child in like 1959, or I guess like when he was filming in 1958, and like telling and showing the world as it is, rather than kind of like a cinema world. So yeah, going like that opening shot with like the Eiffel Tower, like it really, for me, like I watched that and I thought this is a really nice opening sequence. You get that really great score the movie's got, but then like later on, there's something that clicks into for me where like at the end of the movie, like when Antoine's been arrested and or basically being booked into a reform school, like everything else you see from him from his perspective is from behind cages and from behind like bars, and like I kept thinking back to that shot of like trying to see this Eiffel Tower, this sort of like ideal of like Parisian life, but it's like kind of stuck behind these buildings. And it's like no matter what angle you get, you're trying to find a good angle. What I found out from the commentary track was that shot was actually repurposed from a sequence where I guess Antoine and his friend they rent a cab because they want to go see the Eiffel Tower. Right. And so that scene got dropped, but then it gets repurposed into this opening shot because obviously, I mean, Truffaut must have just loved it and wanted to, he thought it like set this feeling for the rest of the movie up.
Sounds like it worked.
Yeah. So, have you seen much French New Wave movies?
I can't say that I have. If I have, I couldn't tell you what it is. Like, I've seen one other Truffaut.
Okay. Have you like you haven't seen any Godard like Breathless or?
I have Breathless, but I haven't watched it yet. Not. I don't know. I don't know what all like. I know the term and I know other movies that fit in there, but like I feel like I've seen a couple, but I can't say what it is. Like I can't think of them right now. So the other Truffaut I saw was Jules and Jim. Okay. And spoiler for that episode, I like that one a lot more than I like this one.
Oh yeah, I mean I think Jules and Jim's like one of the all-time greatest movies ever made. And like that movie I just love. I mean that's his third movie too, I think. So I mean
that's impressive.
So I mean like if you consider like the 400 Blows is his first movie, I mean I think like it's like him like basically making this like film under like it's a theoretical film, I guess ultimately in some ways, like but it's so influential. I think it's so influential that like the parts of it are like so well worn now that I think it's I think it's like without like really trying to like put yourself into a mind or state of mind where you are like imagining watching this movie in 1959, and I don't know necessarily if like every I think it's kind of ridiculous to think people should have to watch movies in that mindset all the time.
No, but it helps. Like that's what I mean. Like when I was saying too. Like I think one of the reasons why it didn't click with me was I'll admit I probably watched it on the wrong day. Like that day I might have been better suited watching something with Mel Gibson flex, and maybe I was in the mood more for that. But
Yep.
I think it definitely helps to get in the state of mind for something like that. So if you have like a movie like this that you want to watch, like make sure that you don't just throw it on like anytime. Like you got to be into it, you know, and then you can appreciate it for what it really is. And I just what you said about like him making this first movie, I had a laugh to myself because it reminded me of when we were talking about Fede Alvarez, about how he did that short, and that's what got him fame. So it's like 400 Blows. If Truffaut is alive now, this would be a 5-minute YouTube clip that he just uploaded, and then Kevin Smith would be like, "Hey man, you're doing good stuff," and then he would bring him onto his thing. So
totally.
hot take.
Hot take.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. Continue.
400 Blows missed out on the YouTube generation.
Yeah, which is too bad because I think it would really appeal to millennials.
Yeah,
because they're angsty kids who just want to run away from home and live behind machines and factories and stuff like that.
Yeah, well,
and they're all about milk too.
Well, so there's like a couple like things that like jumped out at this when I was like watching this movie, which I guess I haven't said if I liked it or not. I like this movie.
Okay.
Like, so one of the things that like Truffaut really set out to do with this movie was, I think, he wanted. It's a weird thing because like they really on the commentary track with Brian Stonehill, which was recorded in '92, he kind of talks a lot about like how he emphasized like having characters be sympathetic. Like that was a real goal, and I'm like, well, isn't that the goal of like every movie, like or like the vast majority of movies, like narrative movies, to like
good movies,
to have you sympathize with the main character, and like so like, I think Truffaut in that regard does a really good job. Like there's like I think the second time I watched it with the commentary track, I was surprised. Like I was watching the movie and I didn't realize that the subtitles weren't on. And I was like, yeah, and I was like totally following along with the movie. I mean, for the most part, it's like there's not a lot of dialogue in the first 5-10 minutes. It's not until the school teacher starts talking, real asshole. And then I realized like I was just listening to the commentary, which for the first like maybe 15 minutes is excellent, and then it starts going into like lots of like quotes from books and recollections from other people, which are done by voice actors.
Yeah.
And it's like, and it kind of takes away from it. I would have liked a lot more information packed in there, but yeah. So like, I was just like watching the movie along, and I was like, oh yeah, the subtitles aren't even on. I forgot to turn them on. But yeah, so the things I really was surprised by was like the movie was shot in CinemaScope. Like, because in my mind's eye, I imagined the like because I'd seen the movie years ago on VHS, like, and it was just like crappy copy. Watching it now, the one thing I was laughing about to myself was like, man, even like poor people in the 20th century, like post-war Paris, dressed better than they do now.
yeah. He like they were looking pretty sharp, but it did sound like that the mom was using the money for the kid's bed to for her own purposes. So maybe that's part of it too.
Yeah,
that's why she was so flashy.
Yeah, she was a garbage human being. But like even the
kids.
Poor kids, like it's not until they get down to their pajamas where you get all the holes and like crudiness of their how they're really like obviously stretching everything out, and then like they're wearing their going out clothes that are like really nice material. And the other thing, just watching this movie on Blu-ray, like it looks fantastic. Like it looks so nice. But yeah, so the movie's shot in CinemaScope. But like in my mind, I was like, oh, a lot of this stuff I thought was like full frame. But that's more of the Godard stuff, I think. Like his early stuff was a lot of it was shot with in like whatever Academy ratio or whatever. But like like the whole like the handheld stuff in this movie. I mean that's what at that period of time, the reason that you'd ever shoot something handheld was because of budgetary constraints. And the reason why this and one of the things too is like with black and white, like it's so like iconic now of like French New Wave that it's sort of like fetishized by people who want to make things look like French New Wave. Like even like with Wes Anderson, his like the Bottle Rocket short. I mean, he was basically doing a riff on French New Wave, and it's black and white, full frame, and all that stuff like that. But all that came down to budgetary constraints, like because shooting in color is expensive, shooting with like actual camera rigging and stuff like that on mounts, that's expensive. Shooting handheld's a lot cheaper, but it looks unprofessional. But nowadays, that's like how everything's shot. Like everything is shot because of that cinema verite feel, the vermissilitude or whatever people want to you throw out there.
Ooh, that's a $10 word.
Yeah, I'll accept PayPal payments, please.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I there's a lot to think about with this movie. I mean, I would totally like just watch this movie just as something to have on. I don't think I don't love this movie, but like, I find it like just stimulating. Yeah.
That's what it sounds like. It sounds like you got a lot more out of this movie. Like it really evoked some kind of like reaction in you where you were thinking about things.
Yeah.
So I guess it worked.
Yeah. I guess.
Did it.
Like a few months ago too, I watched this 1953 American movie called Little Fugitive, which like I heard about it from my friend who's like far more like he's super into French New Wave film, and he had mentioned this one as like kind of an example of sad bastard cinema, and it's this like little independent movie. It had 3 directors on it, but and it's just about this like little kid who he wants his brother, or he wants his older brother to look after him while his mom's out of town, and they're supposed to just stay at home. But the older brother's like, no, he can't go to Coney Island because he has to look after his little brother. And so they kind of do a setup where they make it so like his older brother and his friends make it seem like he's been shot and killed by his own hand.
Okay.
Yeah, like they give him like a gun, but it's not loaded, but they make the sound that it's like he fires it, and it's like, oh, it hit me, oh, I'm dead. And so his little brother will like, I guess the idea is that his brother will like go to like back to the apartment and just stay there, and then they can take off to Coney Island. But the kid runs off, and he apparently just like goes to Coney Island as well.
Okay.
And it's just like this adventures of this freckly faced little pug nosed kid like living on Coney Island for a few days because he thinks he's murdered his brother.
All right, that sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, and so so this movie is like very like much like when I think of that, and I'm like, yeah, like Truffaut loved this movie. He talked about how much big of an influence it was, and it's like it totally was. Like it's like very similar idea, but not like so much like no one's pretending to be murdered or anything like that. But it's like 400 Blows is far more grounded in reality. But it's like the same sort of emotional feeling of like adolescence and stuff like that, and like the weird drama that can be found in childhood that we just don't think of when you get older. You're like, oh yeah, you just get over that, don't you? What did you think of that cat bedroom?
Oh, actually, yeah, that was an awesome part. That house has so many cats,
So
like
many
90 cats.
Big furry cats.
Yeah. As soon as it opened and like I scoped out like 4 cats, I was like, oh my god, I think these people are crazy and they have just 100 cats. And it was true, and they did, and I thought that was pretty neat. Oh, also, that reminds me, actually, these kids were fucking little bastards. Like, there was a scene in the cat room where they're like smoking the dad's cigars and stuff, but they're like knocking bottles over or glasses or something. Actually, it might be a different scene, but there's a scene where it's in the classroom, actually. There's like one kid who's got like welding goggle eyeglasses, and like he's like standing up to like say some like read his report or something, and the kids like they all take turns like mangling his fucking glasses and like pouring ink on it and shit.
You know why? Because he was the rat. Because he's the guy. Because remember, he's the one who comes to. He's the same kid. There's the bit where he's like spying on Antoine and his friend when they're kind of playing hooky, and he's the one who goes to the parents' house after saying, "Oh, I just wanted to make sure that he's still not sick today." Because
and then, I didn't piece it together. The visual prop of the goggles didn't stick with me that it was the same kid.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I'm pretty confident that it's the same piece of shit.
Well, that makes more sense. And then that kid's the miserable bastard.
Yeah, well, I guess like in the commentary made an interesting point, just talking about how like after like World War II, because like obviously like during the French occupation there was like a real history of like spies and like traitors. What's the word for it? But like just like people who like
Espionage.
not espionage, but like the people who collaborators, right?
Okay.
And so there's this like it came like a whole subgenre and in France, and like sort of like a trope in French literature of like these people who like spy and stuff like that. And like that's like what that, I guess like you'd say that's like a throwback to that idea of like kids getting theirs though too, because like obviously like you were, if you were a man, you were hung from the lampposts if you were after the Nazis were taken out of France and collaborators were being taken care of, and like women who were like laying down with like French or German soldiers. I mean, their heads were being shaved and like shamed in the streets and stuff like that. So yeah, your glass is getting bent up and messed with. That was that's getting off light, I guess.
Light? Okay, yeah. Well, yeah, that makes more sense. That kid deserved worse. So.
Totally. Yeah, fuck that guy.
Okay.
So yeah, I mean, I guess like now too with like between Amarcord and 400 Blows, we've had like these two movies of like schools, European school life.
Mm-hmm.
So hey, RJ, did you ever skip class when you were a kid?
Well, if my mom's listening, no. But yeah, I think a few times. I never got into as fun shenanigans as that. I think a lot of time I just went home and just ate food or something. Just being a real piece of shit fat kid, like melting cheese on bread or something like that. So yeah, there was a couple times. Yeah.
Well,
how about you? Were you a renegade? Were you hitting up carnivals and fairs and all sorts of fun? Were you stealing gallons of milk and downing them in alleys?
No, what I think like the period of time I remember was, I think like grade 9. That's when I actually picked up a bad habit of skipping, because I think at some point I realized it doesn't matter. Like,
sure.
Like there'd be some Fridays where you couldn't skip because I had one class where the teacher would call.
Yeah.
But then there's the Fridays where you had classes with the teachers who wouldn't call, and at that point I'm like, well, it doesn't matter. Like I'm still gonna like, I still have A's in these classes, and it's just really no need for me to go because I'd rather like sleep in. And that's kind of like I think my mom would be at work, and then my dad would be like going out the door and say, all right, have a good day at school. And I'd go, bye. And then I'd stay home. And yeah,
you're fucking rebel, man. You're the James Dean of the Canadian elementary, high school, junior high scene.
Yeah, that's right. That was me. Yeah, so I mean,
unbelievable.
Yeah, and then I just hang out at home for a while, and then my weekend would have begun early.
And that's where your life of hard creeping began.
Yeah, probably.
You heard it here first, folks. Skip school, creep on movies, and then one day you can have a podcast too.
Just like us.
Yeah,
eating cheese and
melting cheese on bread, and just being a general piece of shit.
Those are goals.
Goals. Creep town.
No. So hey RJ, what does the 400 blows mean?
Farts? Is it farts?
Nope. Well, it could be.
If Fellini made this movie, it would be farts.
Yeah. Well, I see. It's one of those things where it's just like, you go, what does that actually? What does the title mean?
I actually, as I said earlier, I watched this with my girlfriend, and she asked me the same question like halfway through, and I was like, I think it's just because this kid gets shit on a lot. Like, he just keeps getting a lot of morale blows. Like, sees his mom cheating on his dad. And then the teacher fucking berates him in front of the class. Like, just kind of sucks to be this kid.
Yeah,
that's kind of what I took from it. But
yeah, like from what I understand, it's like because it doesn't really. It's what it translates from the French into the 400 blows. But I guess like the actual French expression is in reference to like raising hell or sowing your wild oats.
What?
Yeah.
It's one of
those things that gets
a bit of a leap.
It gets lost. No, it's one of those weird things that gets lost in from French
Bill
to
Murray.
English. Yeah.
Yeah. No. Well, that makes more sense, nice. I guess. But
yeah.
Yeah. Do you like that little drop there I did for you? Yeah. That's for all those hot viewers out there. You know what I'm talking about.
Oh, did you catch the Francois Truffaut cameo in the rotor gravitron scene? He was there. Was
he in the Graviton with the kid?
Yep.
I did not know. I thought those were just French peasants.
Yeah.
Plebs, as the kids call them.
He kind of was. I mean, like, I won't go too much into his like biography, but I mean, he sounds like he had kind of very similar childhood, like the
Yeah.
only child. Both he was committing petty thefts and truancy from the military, and like sneaking out to watch movies, and just that's all he wanted to do.
Kids.
Mom that didn't love him and stuff like that. So I mean, and then like I guess like because like the actor who plays Antoine Doinel, Jean-Pierre Lude, he plays Antoine Doinel for like several other movies over the next like 20 years.
Wait, this character comes back?
Yeah, there's like a cycle of these movies.
Is this where the Marvel movies got their shared universe idea?
They just might have. They just might have. Actually, I think, wasn't that more Frankenstein and the Wolfman?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So I think maybe the 400 Blows got its inspiration more from the Universal horror films.
Yeah, those and the Abbott and Costellos.
Yeah, there you go.
Those are the real heroes.
Yeah. We can't wait till Tom Cruise shows up in The Mummy. Am I right?
Hey, I'm gonna watch the fuck out of that movie.
I hear you.
Yeah, I like Tom Cruise, man. Uh-oh. You better edit that out of the podcast. We're gonna lose people.
So probably one of my like the scene that really blew me away in this movie though was the like footage of those kids watching the puppet show. Yeah, like because like that was just shooting with real kids and stuff like that, and just like the that way that was done, it's like wow, that's like really good. I wish like stuff like that still popped up in movies, but.
Well, when we make our weird fiction movie, it'll pop up there.
There's this like weird thing now about like grown men filming children. I don't know what's up with that, but
yeah, I don't get that either. What a bunch of preverts like that that guy making that movie we talked about earlier. Well, we won't mention it. You know what I mean though.
Oh,
tantalizing radio.
Yeah, that's right. Oh man. Yeah. So that brings us to our concluding segment of every Criterion Creep review, and that's what do the people who hated this have to say about this movie?
All right, lay it on me.
Well, just looking on here, I don't know, RJ. Maybe they're not that far off from you. Maybe you're the hater.
Ooh. Am I the guy that hated it?
Yeah, maybe. Well, Terry, he gave it 2 stars, and he wrote, meandered through this one. Not really sure what he was getting at, other than his childhood wasn't great. Vanilla cinematography, vanilla plot, vanilla acting, not great.
Jeez, if that guy's calling this vanilla, I'd love to see what he thinks is chocolate.
Oh,
like
man.
Jurassic World.
Damn right.
Sometimes I was gonna say sometimes when you find these guys with just fucking ludicrous things, go see what their favorite movies are, and we can we'll have a frame of reference here to go off of. But anyways, keep going.
Well, Terry's like favorite films are actually not bad.
Okay, well fuck him then. We need a funny example.
Fine. Roger E. He gave this 2 stars. A very boring black and white French drama with subtitles, which occasionally has some interesting scenes.
Oh, I think that's a little hard on it. I think anything lower than like a 3.5 is just people being pricks.
Yeah.
Because like I wasn't that interested in it, but like I can say it's a good movie. Like it deserves a good score. So these guys are just assholes, maybe. What else you got there?
Oh, let's see here. I love when guys start the review. Yeah, this is Obfuscation. He gave it 2.5 stars. Meh. Still doesn't do much for me. Give me all the adventures of Antoine has following this film instead. That's okay. Yeah, that's what he wrote. But this has that raw yet sappy he's unloved spiel going for it through how Truffaut apparently grew up. So of course this is the only one that gets acknowledged. Lued is clearly sympathetic in the role, only the film suffers from its circle the drain direction that leaves everything back to a lackluster square one mentality. He has a tough road, eventually finds a day to have some fun, or his parents aren't jerks that one night. Then that's gone, back to the grind of the hardship he goes, repeat over again until it ends. Makes the film more tiresome than engaging, even when it is trying its hardest to make a lasting impact on me. As far as I'm concerned, real start of the French New Wave is Louis Malle's Elevator to the Gallows. So that's take a look. We have that to look forward to someday down the road. That Elevator to the Gallows.
I think this guy doesn't realize that a lot of people do have pretty shitty lives like that. Like that's a real thing. That's not just like fabricated cinema life. Like there's a lot of kids who are just fucking homeless. So this guy's like, oh, poor kid. It's like, well, it does happen, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like there's just a lot of like middle, like people just like not caring for it. Which I mean, sure, that's fine.
I guess that would be on the upper echelon of the mez. I'm at the top of the meh, where it's like, yeah, I didn't care that much, but it is good.
Chuck Delaney, he might be a listener. He gave it 1.5 stars, and he just said worst porn ever. There you go.
Okay, I'm just gonna start. I'm gonna start leaving that as a review on all of my film or all my movies now. Everything I log, that'll just be my review. Worst porn ever.
Worst porn ever.
Yeah, Don't Breathe. Worst porn ever. Or best, depending on how you view turkey basters.
Okay, well, I've got one more I want to read because this one I find interesting. From Lobaka, 1.5 star.
Okay.
The movie follows an ill-mannered and annoying boy as he increasingly gets into greater and greater trouble, both at home and at school. I've seen some reviews that discuss him in the context of a sympathetic character, but I really don't see how he's a sympathetic character. He may only be a child, but he's certainly not misunderstood. He's spotted for exactly what he is. He steals, he runs away, he cheats, he's poorly behaved, and he faces the consequences of this by rebelling further. It's very much brought upon himself. In that scene, in that sense, he doesn't seem to be a compelling center for a story, simply as it's him whining about there being consequences for his actions.
He's not wrong. That's kind of like sometimes, but okay.
I don't know.
You don't think so?
I don't know. I never found him like ill-mannered or annoying or whatever. I mean, he seemed like a kid. And
I feel like this guy might have he might have a son who's like ditching stuff all the time, so he's really like jaded about it. He's like, what a piece of shit little kid, like he deserves everything he gets.
You're just like that kid in that movie I watched the other night, that 400 Blows. You're just like, I'm gonna call you Blows.
Yeah, it's like, don't you know you got it good here?
Busting out the Mike Judge dad voice.
I'll tell you what.
Yeah.
Dang it, Bobby. Okay.
Yeah, all right.
Well, there you go, I guess.
There we go.